Grab yourself a coffee and pull up a seat because today I'm going to teach you how to play Twisted Fables from Dimension Games. I'm Mark Maya and this is Board Game Coffee. Twisted Fables is a combat-driven deck-building game that can be played 1v1 or 2v2 if you have the upgrade pack, sold separately. For this video, we'll be focusing on the 1v1 version of the game and apply the additional rules for Relic mode. We'll also be using the deluxe edition of the game, which uses minis instead of the standees. Obviously not required to play, but they do make the game look really cool. But deluxe edition or not, the same rules apply no matter which version you have. If you're looking for a particular section of this video, check out the index in the description below. In Twisted Fables, players play cards to move their fable on the fight track, increase their defense, and deal damage to their opponents, as long as they're within range. You'll also have access to character-specific cards that are used to augment your actions and offer up new ways to lay the hurt down on your enemy. At the end of your turn, any power you generate can be used to buy more cards to improve your deck, with the goal of reducing your opponent's health to 0 before they do it to you. Alright, now that you got the gist, let's get to the setup. Okay, first things first. Each player selects one fable to play as, and slots their card into one of these fable boards. Now, place the health tracker in the numbered slot that matches the maximum health value indicated on the fable card. Do the same with the epic threshold tracker. Then place your PowerPoint tracker and defense tracker in the 0 space of their respective tracks. The number indicated under your defense is the maximum defense value that your fable can ever have at any one time. Since we're playing with the Relic variant, shuffle all the Relic cards and lay out 9 face up like this, and place the remaining deck of Relic cards next to it like so. If you want to play without the Relic variant, just lay the 9 cards face down and place the remaining Relic cards back in the box. But regardless of what version you're playing, each player places their fable character on one of these 2 starting spaces. To set up your basic supply deck marketplace, separate the different levels of attack, defense, movement, and wild cards into 10 face-up decks, and place them beside the fighting track so it looks something like this. Each fable has their own unique little marketplace that only they can access, and it's filled with their unique skill cards. To create this supply of skill cards, collect all the cards that belong to your character and organize them according to this chart, making sure to maintain the list's order. Meaning the top card of the list will be the top card of your deck. The second card listed will be next, and so on. Do this for each of the 3 deck types and place them face up next to your character board. Each fable will also have a set of 3 epic cards that you can place off to the side for now. We'll get back to those a little later. Now it's time to build your starting deck. Take 3 level 1 attack cards, 3 level 1 defense cards, and 3 level 1 movement cards from the basic supply. Then add to that the first card off the top of each of your personal skill decks. Shuffle all 12 cards together and place them face down next to your fable board to form your starting deck. Before we wrap up this setup, check your fable card for any additional rules required to set up that character. Snow White, for example, has additional rules that explain how to assemble her poison deck. Any additional tokens or cards required by your fable should be placed near that character for easy access. When the setup is done, your table should look something like this. In addition, make sure to leave room for your individual discard piles, play area, and twist cards as they become unlocked. Before we get started, we're going to have to decide who goes first. How you do that is completely up to you. Once that's done, the first player will draw 4 cards off the top of their starting deck, and the second player draws 6. Now, if you don't like what you drew, each player will have a one-time option of taking a mulligan. This means shuffling the cards you drew back into your deck and then drawing that many cards back off the top. Okay, now that we have our starting hand, let's learn how to play Twisted Fables. Twisted Fables is played in turns, and on your turn, you'll play cards from your hand to do as much as you possibly can or want to. Then you'll wrap it up by buying some new cards to improve your deck, and then after that, play passes to the next player. This back and forth continues until one player's health is reduced to 0 and the other player wins. A player's turn is broken up into 4 phases: the beginning phase, refresh phase, activation phase, and end phase. The first thing you need to do when your turn starts is resolve any game effect in your play area that says it resolves at the beginning of your turn. If you have multiple cards like this in your play area, just resolve them in whichever order you like. Once that's done, discard all the cards in your play area, including all ongoing cards, and reset your defense to 0. The activation phase is the core phase of the game. This is where you get to do all the cool stuff you came to do. On your turn, you can perform any of these actions as many times as you want in any order you want, with one exception: the focus action. Before you perform any actions, you can choose to skip your entire activation phase to destroy a card from your hand or discard pile. When you destroy a card, remove it from the game completely, unless otherwise stated. When you want to deal damage to your opponent, get within range 1 of their Fable and play any number of attack cards from your hand to inflict damage equal to the total number of attack icons shown. You also gain an equivalent amount of power points. It's important to note that if an opponent is out of your range, you can't play attack cards. And if you can't play them, you don't get the power they generate. For each defense icon depicted on the cards you play, increase your defense by that amount, and gain an equal amount of power. And remember, when gaining defense, you cannot exceed your maximum defense value. But, unlike the attack cards, you can still play defense cards even if your defense is at max, and still gain the power equal to the amount of defense you played. Now that we know how to attack and defend, let's see what happens when players take damage. When a Fable receives damage, it must first be deducted from their available defense value, and any remaining damage, if any, will be deducted from their total hit points. For example, if Red Riding Hood has a defense of 4 and is dealt 6 damage, the first 4 points are absorbed by her defense, and the remaining 2 are deducted from her health total. But if she was only dealt, let's say, 2 damage, then her defense would absorb all of it, and her health will remain unchanged. Some game effects trigger by inflicting a certain amount of damage. However, these game effects are often based on the attacking player's initial attack value rather than the damage inflicted. So even if your opponent takes no damage, the effect still takes place. There are some instances where the defending Fable needs to be dealt the damage, but that would be clearly noted in the effect's text, so keep an eye out for that. Losing HP, also known as health points, and taking damage both reduce your health total. But when a card instructs you to lose HP, this loss of health points bypasses your defense completely and is directly deducted from your health total. But on the bright side, losing HP won't trigger any game effects inflicted by taking damage or inflicting damage, which I guess is only the bright side depending what side you're on. If an effect allows you to restore health, you can never regain more than your maximum health value. To move, play any number of movement cards from your hand, add up the number of movement icons, and move that many spaces in one direction. Although you can move back and forth using multiple move actions. You also gain power points equal to the movement you generated. You can move through a space with an opponent, but you can't stomp on it. And you must spend the movement total of the movement cards you played for this action, if able. If you can't move because you've reached the edge of the fight track, or you would end in your opponent's space, then stop moving and ignore the rest of the movement that you haven't spent. The amount of power you gain from this move action will not be affected. Unlike the attack action, even if you wouldn't move at all due to the reasons I described, you can still use a move action just to gain power. Relics make up the fight track that players move along, and add an extra level of depth to the game's strategy. Once per turn, players have the option of activating the relic they are currently standing on. To activate a relic, simply discard a skill card from your hand and apply its skill level to the card's ability by replacing this icon with the value located in the upper left portion of the card you discarded. That number is the card's level or skill value. Once you've resolved the relic's effect, discard it from the fight track. Note that this still counts as a space even though there's no relic there. The space will get refilled during the end phase. In addition to the actions I've mentioned thus far, some components allow you to perform unique actions which will be described on the components themselves. Each component action is preceded by the word action in bold. Wild cards are level 1 basic cards that can be used as a level 1 attack, defense, or move. You have to choose which one you're using when you use it. It doesn't count as all three. Each Fable has their own set of unique skill cards that lets them perform powerful abilities, although skill cards on their own don't do much at all. You see, to play a skill card, you need to combine it with a basic card from your hand in order to trigger its effect. This icon here indicates the type of basic card you need to combine it with. So in this example, to use Red Riding Hood's Crack Shot, we would need to combine it with a basic attack card. So by combining it with this 3 attack, we're essentially changing the text to read range 2, damage 2, plus 3, dealing a total of 5 damage. You can only ever combine one skill card with one basic card, and it's important to note that the basic card you use no longer produces power. Remember the 3 cards we set aside during the setup? Well, now we get to use them. Well, one of them anyway. When your health tracker reaches this epic threshold marker, remove the marker and select one of your Fable's 3 epic cards to put directly into your hand. The other 2 epic cards are removed from the game. Epic cards are powerful abilities that you don't need to combine with another card to play, and once you have them, they become a permanent part of your deck. The power-up phase is when you get to spend all the power points you earn this turn to buy powerful new cards for your deck. And it's important to note that power points don't carry over to the next turn, so spend them if you got them, because there's no limit to the number of cards you can buy. When shopping for cards, you can choose the top card from a basic supply deck or one of your own skill supply decks. The cost of a card is listed here, so just deduct that amount from your PowerPoint total and add that card to your discard pile. And remember, you can only buy the top card of your skill deck, no digging. The more you buy of a particular stack of cards, the better the cards you get from that stack. As a bonus, if you buy a skill card and reveal one of these twist cards, that twist card is automatically unlocked and placed in your twist card area, unless otherwise stated. Once you're done buying cards, it's time to move on to the end phase. The first thing we need to do during our end phase is reset our power to 0. Then discard all the cards in your hand and play area, except for cards with the ongoing effect and any basic cards played along with them. If there are any empty spaces in the fight track, fill it with the top card of the relic deck. Now draw back up to 6 cards. If you run out of cards in your main deck, shuffle your discard pile to create a new draw deck and continue drawing until you have 6 cards in hand. Lastly, resolve any other game effects that need to be resolved at the end of your turn, in whichever order you decide. Once that's done, your turn is over and play passes to your opponent. Continue taking turns and following the phases laid out in this video until one player's health is reduced to 0. When that happens, the game ends immediately and the other player wins. And that's it. I hope this video helped, and I hope you enjoy playing Twisted Fables. See you next week. Thanks for joining us. If you like this video and you want to see more, subscribe to our channel. It's the best way to keep up to date with everything we do here at Board Game Coffee. But if you want to see more right now, we got plenty of videos to choose from. And if that's not enough, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Mark Maya, and this is Board Game Coffee. And remember, have fun, keep gaming, be social. See you next week.